At first, it looked like just another quiet day in a war-torn country, a place where the world's attention had begun to drift elsewhere, pulled by newer headlines and fresher crises. But then, without warning, something shifted. A familiar figure appeared where few expected him to be. There were no grand announcements beforehand, no dramatic build-up, no royal fanfare. Just a sudden presence, quiet, deliberate, and impossible to ignore. When news broke that Prince Harry had made an unannounced visit to Ukraine, it sent ripples far beyond the immediate scene. Why now? Why here? And perhaps most importantly, what message was he trying to send to a world that seemed, slowly but surely, to be looking away? To understand the weight of that moment, it helps to step back and consider who Prince Harry is today. No longer a senior working royal in the traditional sense, he has carved out a different path. One that blends humanitarian work, advocacy, and a willingness to step into spaces that carry both risk and meaning. Over the years, he has been closely associated with veterans' causes, mental health awareness, and global humanitarian efforts, often choosing to engage directly rather than from a distance. His connection to wounded soldiers through the Invictus Games has been particularly defining, shaping his public identity in ways that go beyond titles or protocol. Ukraine, on the other hand, remains a country under immense strain. Since the escalation of conflict with Russia, it has become a symbol of resilience, but also of the heavy cost of war. The global response has evolved over time, initial waves of solidarity gradually giving way to a more complex, sometimes fatigued international landscape. Attention spans shift, priorities change, and even the most urgent crises risk fading from the forefront of public consciousness. It is within this context that Prince Harry's visit takes on a deeper significance. Reports indicate that his trip was carefully arranged, focusing not on spectacle but on substance. He visited a rehabilitation center in Lviv, a facility dedicated to helping those injured in the conflict, many of them soldiers, some of them civilians, all carrying visible and invisible scars. This wasn't a ceremonial appearance. There were no grand speeches delivered to massive crowds. Instead, the visit centered on conversations, observations, and quiet moments of connection. It was, in many ways, consistent with the kind of work he has chosen to prioritize in recent years. But then something unexpected happened. As details of the visit began to emerge, it became clear that this was not simply about showing up. It was about reminding the world of something it might be in danger of forgetting. According to reports, Prince Harry urged continued attention and support for Ukraine, emphasizing that the country's struggle had not ended simply because global headlines had shifted. His message, though delivered without theatrics, carried a clear undertone: the fight for awareness was just as critical as the fight on the ground. What followed surprised many observers. The visit quickly became a focal point in international media, not just because of who Prince Harry is, but because of what his presence represented. In a time when diplomatic gestures are often calculated and highly visible, his low-key approach stood out. There was no elaborate entourage, no extensive advance publicity. Instead, there was a sense of immediacy, a decision to go, to see, and to speak, even if only briefly. As the timeline of the visit unfolded, more details added layers to the story. Prince Harry met with injured veterans, listening to their experiences and learning about their recovery journeys. He observed the work being done at the rehabilitation center, where medical professionals and support staff are engaged in the painstaking process of helping individuals rebuild their lives after trauma. These were not abstract discussions about policy or strategy. They were human encounters, grounded in personal stories and shared understanding. But perhaps the most striking element was the symbolism. Prince Harry himself is a former soldier, someone who has experienced military service and its consequences firsthand. His connection to those he met in Ukraine was not purely ceremonial, it was rooted in lived experience. This added a layer of authenticity to the visit, one that resonated with those who saw it not as a royal gesture, but as a personal one. And yet, beneath the surface, there was an undeniable tension. The decision to travel to a country still affected by conflict carries inherent risks, both physical and political. It raises questions about security, about the role of public figures in active conflict zones, and about the boundaries between humanitarian engagement and political messaging. While the visit was framed as a show of support, its implications extended into more complex territory. As the story continued to unfold, reactions began to take shape. Media outlets around the world picked up on the visit, each framing it through their own lens. Some highlighted the courage of the decision, emphasizing the importance of maintaining global attention on Ukraine. Others focused on the unconventional nature of the trip, noting how it diverged from traditional royal engagements. There were also those who questioned the timing and the broader context, asking whether such visits have a tangible impact or primarily serve symbolic purposes. Public response was equally varied. Many people expressed admiration, viewing the visit as a meaningful act of solidarity. Social media platforms were filled with messages praising the decision to go, to witness, and to speak out. For some, it reinforced the idea that influential figures can play a role in keeping critical issues in the public eye. It was seen as a reminder that even in a world saturated with information, individual actions can still cut through the noise. At the same time, there were more cautious perspectives. Some observers suggested that while the visit was well-intentioned, its long-term impact might be limited. Others pointed out that the presence of high-profile individuals in conflict zones can sometimes complicate already delicate situations. These discussions did not necessarily diminish the significance of the visit, but they added nuance to how it was perceived. It appears that the broader narrative quickly moved beyond the specifics of the trip itself. Instead, it became part of a larger conversation about attention, responsibility, and the role of public figures in global crises. Prince Harry's message urging the world not to forget Ukraine resonated precisely because it tapped into a widely recognized phenomenon. Over time, even the most urgent issues can fade from view, replaced by new developments and shifting priorities. Some reports suggest that this was exactly the point. By choosing to make the visit without extensive pre-announcement, Prince Harry may have been aiming to create a moment that felt immediate and genuine, rather than staged. The surprise element ensured that the story would capture attention, at least temporarily, and perhaps prompt a renewed focus on the situation in Ukraine. But this wasn't the first time Prince Harry has taken such an approach. Throughout his post-royal career, he has often chosen to engage directly with causes that matter to him, sometimes in ways that challenge conventional expectations. Whether through his work with veterans, his advocacy for mental health, or his involvement in humanitarian efforts, there is a consistent thread, a willingness to step into complex situations and to use his platform in ways that are not always predictable. What happened next, however, added another layer of intrigue. As coverage of the visit continued, discussions began to shift toward its deeper implications. Was this simply an isolated act of support, or did it signal something more? Could it influence how other public figures engage with global issues? And perhaps most intriguingly, what does it reveal about the evolving role of individuals like Prince Harry, who operate outside traditional institutional frameworks but still carry significant influence? The answers to these questions are not straightforward. Many people believe that symbolic gestures, while important, must be accompanied by sustained action to create meaningful change. Others argue that in a world where attention is a finite resource, even brief moments of focus can have value. It appears that Prince Harry's visit sits somewhere in between both a symbolic act and a practical engagement, both a personal choice and a public statement. From a broader perspective, the moment highlights a shift in how influence is exercised. In the past, royal visits were often carefully choreographed, designed to project stability and continuity. Today, figures like Prince Harry operate with a different kind of freedom, allowing them to respond more directly to unfolding events. This flexibility can lead to moments that feel more authentic, but it also introduces new complexities. As the story continues to resonate, it raises deeper questions about memory and attention. In an age of constant information flow, how do we decide what to focus on? What does it take to keep an issue in the public consciousness? And what role do individuals, especially those with global visibility, play in shaping that focus? Prince Harry's visit to Ukraine does not provide definitive answers to these questions. Instead, it serves as a reminder of their importance. It highlights the tension between immediacy and longevity, between action and impact, between visibility and substance. It suggests that even small moments, an unannounced visit, a brief conversation, a simple message, can carry weight, especially when they occur in the right context. In the end, the visit can be seen as both a gesture and a prompt. A gesture of solidarity with those affected by the conflict, and a prompt for the rest of the world to pay attention. It does not resolve the complexities of the situation, nor does it claim to. But it does create a moment, a pause in the flow of information, a reminder that behind the headlines are real people, real struggles, and real consequences. As the dust settles and the headlines move on, one question lingers. Was this moment simply a brief spark of attention, or could it mark the beginning of a renewed focus on a conflict that the world cannot afford to forget?